Every NBA team has a history. Some richer than others, like for example the Los Angeles Lakers being more richer than the Charlotte Hornets. And today we're going to be ranking the best player all time from every NBA team. In this video we're going to be doing the Western Conference. In a video soon we're going to be covering the Eastern Conference. There is of course 15 NBA teams, and we are going to be basing it off of the 2019-2020 standings. So we have the Lakers at the 1 seed and the Warriors as the 15 seed. So this is going to be very controversial, but I hope you enjoy. Before we get started, it would be greatly appreciated if you subscribe to the channel. Here on the Mix channel, we're going to be making daily NBA videos consisting all 10 rankings, the offseason, the draft, any storylines, and some other cool NBA topics. And I would be happy for you to join the squad. Also, leave a like because it only takes 1 second and it helps the channel out so much and really helps the YouTube algorithm so my content can spread to other people. Now let's begin. So the first team we have is the Los Angeles Lakers, and their best all-time player is a tie between Kobe Bryant and Magic Johnson. Now I have to give this a tie. Although Magic is, in my opinion, is a better player, Kobe meant so much more to the Lakers. Both spent their entire careers in LA, winning 5 chips each, 2 of the top 10 players all time, no question. And it's so tough to rank because, as we saw, Magic was just so good on the Showtime Lakers, but just Kobe. He's Kobe Bryant. And we have some honorable mentions being Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he wasn't in his prime, but he was still dominant, but still not over Kobe and Magic. We have Jerry West, and the logo was a beast, but he only won 1 ring. Shaquille O'Neal, he was dominant, but he also split his prime in Orlando and the Heat. And of course, and finally, we have Alex Caruso, who is the GOAT, has more championships than Charles Barkley, Steve Nash, John Stockton, Karl Malone, and Damian Lillard combined. So yeah, that's gonna be the Lakers. Now at number 2, we have the Los Angeles Clippers, and that is Bob McAdoo. He averaged about 28 points a game, 13 rebounds, and 2.4 blocks in his time with the Buffalo Braves, so right now the Los Angeles Clippers. He is an MVP, Rookie of the Year, and put up about 18 points as a rookie, and soon put up 31 points, 34 points, and 31 points again, winning 3 straight scoring titles. On the Buffalo Braves in 1972, he was so dominant, but when he left the Clippers to join other teams, he fell off a hint. Now some honorable mentions are Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and those two being it. Chris Paul was a beast, but couldn't go very far in the playoffs, and he still had his prime split on the Pelicans and the Rockets and even the Thunder. And Blake Griffin, I think he would have been this if he had the 2018-2019 Blake Griffin was on the Clippers. He was, of course, traded to the Pistons and was an All-NBA third team, putting up his best season ever. And if he did that on the Clippers, I think he would have done it. And he was also betrayed by the Clippers when they said he was going to be their franchise player, but then they traded him. At number 3, we have the Denver Nuggets, and their franchise player is Alex English. 26 points a game, 5.6 rebounds, and 4 assists on 856 games. English is one of the most underrated scorers. Scored the most points in the 1980s, 21,000 points, even over people like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Michael Jordan. His career was cut short from injury and cocaine addiction. He leads the Nuggets in points, games, rebounding, assists, and although they couldn't make it far in the playoffs, they just couldn't beat the Showtime Lakers with Kareem and Magic and even James Worthy. Now, some honorable mentions are Carmelo Anthony, but although early Melo was good, he's more recognized as a Knick, and David Thompson, who put up 73 points a game, but had some injuries and some other addictions, so he kind of fell off. Now at number 4, we have the Houston Rockets, and their best player is Hakeem Olajuwon. This is definitely a no question. The Dream won 2 titles, an MVP, 2 Finals MVPs, and some of the most historic playoff runs. He was the best player in the 1990s over people like David Robinson and Patrick Ewing and even young Shaq. His mixture of footwork, skill, Post moves and even a baseline jump shot made him unstoppable and unguardable, along with his defense winning a Defensive Player of the Year and MVP and Finals MVP in the same season. Had two of the greatest playoff runs ever, demolishing multiple superstars including Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, and Patrick Ewing. Now, the honorable mentions are James Harden, and although he made the playoffs every year in Houston, winning an MVP and multiple scoring titles, along with first team All-NBA, he just couldn't get over the Warriors, and apparently he's requesting a trade because he's not happy, but I still think Hakeem is no doubt their franchise player. Now at number 5, we have the Oklahoma City Thunder, and this is a tough choice between the Thunder's 2010 superstars Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Although KD, it no doubt, is the better player and scorer, Russ means more to the Thunder and is just so much more to the Thunder. I forgot to say this, but I'm gonna be based it on statistics, winning, and their impact. So this is when the impact comes into play. If KD didn't sign with the Warriors and stayed in OKC, he would have no doubt been their franchise player. Just look at someone like Lost and Unbound. He was a big Thunders fan, probably the biggest one on YouTube, and he hates Kevin Durant. Even like burning his jersey, that's how much he hates KD because of his signing with the Warriors. However, Lost and Unbound still loves Russ, and even when he got traded, he still loves Russ rather than hating him like Kevin Durant. KD, as I said, the honorable mentions are KD, as I said, and Gary Payton, who is no doubt the best supersonic, but not close to Russ and KD. Now at number 6, we have the Utah Jazz, and their franchise player is Karl Malone. Karl Malone is just so dominant, and he had a prime. He had a big prime, putting up 25 points a game and 10 rebounds, and was second all-time in scoring with about 36,000 points, only behind Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's a two-time MVP in 1997 and 1999, even over people like Michael Jordan. Although he did not win a championship, he is still no doubt the best Jazz of all time, and if Michael Jordan didn't exist, he no doubt would have won a championship. Now the honorable mentions include John Stockton. John Stockton was always the sidekick, and Malone was always the better player, so Malone takes the spot. Now at the 17, we have the Dallas Mavericks, and that is Dirk Nowitzki. He spent his whole career in the Mavericks, putting up 21 points a game, 7 rebounds, and had a 22-year career only on the Mavericks. Although his stats went down for the last 5 years, this is no doubt the Mavericks' best player. He's an MVP and led an historic playoff run, beating Kobe Bryant, a young Thunder team with James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant, who were all young though, and the big three with LeBron, D-Wade, and Bosh. Now, this also gave them the Mavericks' first title, so that of course adds as a cherry on top. He is no doubt at least the top 4 power forward, and like I said, is the best player in the Mavericks all time in 2020. Luka Doncic actually might pass Dirk Nowitzki with his dominance at only 21, but for now it's Dirk Nowitzki because of his impact to the Mavericks, and all Mavericks fans know that Dirk Nowitzki is their best player. Now, the 8th team we're going to be looking at is the Portland Trail Blazers, and their franchise player is Clyde Drexler. On the Blazers, he put up about 21 points and 6 assists as a shooting guard. He was the second best shooting guard in the 1990s, and he is so underrated. He's a Hall of Famer, perennial All-Star, and was even second in MVP only behind Michael Jordan. He was a 10-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, and made it to the finals 2 times with the Blazers, but he never won it because of the Chicago Bulls. Overshadowed by Jordan, but he was still a beast on the offensive side and was still a pretty good defender. He later won a chip with the Rockets alongside Hakeem, but that doesn't matter to the ranking, but he is still the Blazers franchise player. Now, some honorable mentions include Bill Walton, who was an MVP, but injuries tore down his career, and Damian Lillard. And although his loyalty is impressive, he isn't over Clyde, and he might be in the future. Now, next up, we have the Memphis Grizzlies, and their franchise player is Marc Gasol. Gasol was sent to the Grizzlies in the Pau Gasol deal, and although Marc Gasol was a throw-in, he made the deal a win-win situation. Marc made it, like I said, a win-win with his versatile offense and defensive as a player, being able to somewhat stop guards on the perimeter and also clamp opposing bigs. Gasol was a good post player, passer, had a capable jump shot, and when the Grizzlies need a bucket, they can just give it to Marc Gasol and he's going to give it to them at a high efficiency rate. He led the grit and grind area, making it to the conference finals and even upsetting the 8 seed, even upsetting the 1 seed, the San Antonio Spurs. They had multiple playoff runs, but they never made it to the finals. Now, the honorable mention is his teammate Mike Conley, and although this is very close, I think Marc Gasol is the better player, but he definitely deserves a nod. Now, for the next team, we have the Phoenix Suns, and now this is a tough one between the Suns' best all-time player, and it's extremely close between Steve Nash and Charles Barkley. Chuck was dominant, winning an MVP and barely losing to the finals to the Bulls in Game 7. However, he still had a couple years in Philly. However, Steve Nash is a 2-time MVP, and when you think of the Suns, you probably think of Nash. They made some deep playoff runs, but were overpowered by the teams like the Spurs and the Lakers. The 2000 Suns' fast 7 seconds or less offense was a beauty to watch, and impacting the league today that made so much impact for teams like the Rockets and even like the Golden State Warriors. His versatile shooting 50, 40, 90 multiple times, well-known assists where he's a consistent 10 assist player, and leadership put him over Chuck, but it is very close. Now, for the 11th team we'll be looking at is the San Antonio Spurs, and their franchise player is Tim Duncan. Like some other picks, including like the Jazz and some other teams, this is hands down their best player. He is a top 10 player and the best power forward of all time. He is a 2-time MVP, 5-time champion, and just dominated the 2000s, one of the toughest eras of all time. He was an elite two-way player, and the Spurs would have not been a juggernaut without the big fundamental. Some honorable mentions are David Robinson, and he is no doubt the second best player of all time, and he's very underrated, but he couldn't win a chip without Duncan. And Tony Parker, Duncan's sidekick, but was always reliable in the playoffs, but like I said, he is his sidekick. Now, the next team we'll be looking at is the Sacramento Kings, and their franchise player is Oscar Robertson. He averaged 29 points a game, 10 assists, and 8.5 rebounds on 48% field goal percentage with his 10 seasons on the Kings. He was the first person to average a triple-double, and the Kings would have not been what he just dominated. Playing on the Cincinnati Royals for, like I said, for 10 years, he almost averaged a triple-double for almost 6 consecutive seasons, almost hitting 1 rebound or 1 assist away multiple seasons. He couldn't make it 4 in the playoffs though, and he was a 12-time All-Star, an MVP, 11-time All-NBA, 6 assist champion, and had extreme dominance. He is no doubt a top 3 point guard and is a top 20 player of all time. This is an easy choice. Now for the New Orleans Pelicans, the race for the Pelicans all-time player is between Chris Paul and Anthony Davis. They are both MVP candidates and also being elite on the defensive side, although in different ways. Both only won 1 playoff series, but I give the slight edge to Anthony Davis, as he leads the franchise in field goals, free throws, rebounds, blocks, points per games, and blocks per game. But it was still very close between Chris Paul, who, although he was really good on the Hornets, being second in MVP, he was only there for like 6 seasons, and his time on the Clippers, he was better than the time on the Hornets, in my opinion. Next, the second to last team, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves, and their franchise player is Kevin Garnett. He averaged about 19 points a game, 11 rebounds, 4 assists on 49% shooting, while also being elite defensively. He is an MVP, perennial All-Star, perennial All-NBA, and made it to the Western Conference Finals once. But in his final 2 to 3 years in Minnesota, they couldn't make it to the playoffs at all and requested a trade to Boston. And we know what happened in the future where he won a championship with Boston. Besides the 1 year with Jimmy Butler, the Timberwolves haven't made the playoffs. It hasn't made a playoff berth in 2020 since Kevin Garnett was in the Timberwolves jersey. And finally, for our last team is the Golden State Warriors, and their franchise player is Steph Curry. 2-time MVP, one of them being unanimous, a multiple-time All-Star, All-NBA, four-time champion, and is the best shooter of all time. I think this is a no-brainer because he just means so much to the Warriors, and if he wasn't going to the Warriors would have done nothing in the finals, and LeBron, he would have dominated. But since of Steph Curry's dominance, I think he is the Warriors' all-time players over people like Wilt Chamberlain. And although he put up 50 points a game one season, he didn't win that much against the loaded Celtics team, and Curry, in my opinion, means more. So yeah, that's gonna be a video, and I thank you all so much for watching. This took so long to make, and I would really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel, like the video, and also subscribe to my second channel, The Mixed Plays. We're gonna be doing gaming content, and I'll see you all next time.